Ladies and gentlemen, if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned in the Consequence of Habit podcast. And this is the part where I talk about my homies, the alchemists over at Athletic Brewing Company. Disclaimer, if you enjoy crappy tasting beer, or maybe you're a fan of hangovers, then go ahead and skip this part. It's not for you. And on the flip side of that, if you enjoy waking up with a clear head and just getting after your day, or the taste of amazing beer, whatever your style of beer, whatever you're a fan of, these guys got it. Well, then stick around. Matter of fact, just go ahead and log on to athleticbrewing.com. Your first order, use the promo code capital COH20 and get 20% off your first order. These guys are making the finest quality NA beers out there. So whether you're like me and alcohol just does not fit into your lifestyle anymore, you're done with it. You've run the experiment way too many times and found that, well, it's not good for you. Or you're just not drinking today. Maybe you got something going on today. Whatever it is, check them out at athleticbrewing.com. This week on the podcast, we welcome Mr. Tyler Hamilton. If you're a fan of cycling, you already know who Tyler is. He's been around, well, you know, if there's name a big race, he's done it. The Olympics, the Tour de France, the Vuelta, the Giro. He was also part of an ugly time in cycling. He wasn't the first guy to do it. That era wasn't the first group of guys to try and find an edge. And Tyler's story's been told a bunch. We're not here to drag him or anybody else through the mud about the doping scandals that went around in cycling in the 90s and 2000s. What I wanted to discuss with Tyler is, well, what happens when everything that you do, your profession, your identity, everything kind of crumbles around you? How do you pick up those pieces and kind of move on with your life? And how do you do it when your demise and your friend's demise is so public? You know, Tyler was on 60 Minutes. He's been in a bunch of different documentaries. And man, his consequences they're tough. And kudos to Tyler for just opening up and talking about it all. The good, the bad, all of it. So with that said, please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Tyler Hamilton. Everybody, this is a big one for me. I am honored to have on Mr. Tyler Hamilton. Tyler, thanks so much for having on. Look, I can't even talk. I literally can't even talk. Tyler, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, JT. It's an honor to be here.
All right. Anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I'm a fan of cycling. You've already seen clearly that you are not the first cyclist to come on the podcast. But what I'm really interested in talking to you about, and this is something we spoke about right before I hit record here, is you know, we have this thought of ourselves as, you know, for you at one time it was a ski jumper and turned into a cyclist that reached the top, that you're racing against the top pros in the entire world and doing really well. And anyone who knows cycling during that time, it was a strange time in the world of cycling, and there was a lot of things involved. Yeah. And all of that at one point goes away. And we're going to cover what kind of leads up to that point. But for me, it's that pivot. It's that time where you go, all right, this thing that I'm no longer, at least at that pro level, but I still got a whole lot of life ahead of me here. So we gotta figure something out. And I think that's part of the story that maybe hasn't been told. And it's, for me, it's what I'm really fascinated in kind of digging deep in. But first off, let's start off with how you got into cycling, maybe just the injury that kind of led you from one sport into another, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, thanks, JT. You know, I wasn't a ski jumper, but I was a ski racer, downhill ski racer, alpine ski racer. Okay. And that was my passion as a kid. And then up through college, that was my sport. I did a little bit of cycling in the summertime to keep my legs in shape for the ski season. But yes, slalom and giant slalom were my two favorite events. And my dream was to someday be in the Olympics. I had some work to do, but that was my goal ever since I was a kid, ever since I was probably, I don't know, 8, 9 years old. I watched the Olympics in Lake Placid. I just watched that on television. And I was like, being an Olympian, representing your country would be the coolest thing. And, for the longest time, I thought that was going to be, if I had a chance, it was going to be in ski racing. But I went on to University of Colorado Boulder. They had a good ski program there. And my sophomore year there, I was training with the ski team, and we're actually on mountain bikes, dryland training. And I crashed and broke 2 vertebrae in my upper back. And really, really lucky I wasn't paralyzed, or, I was a young kid then. So just, more or less brushed it off and didn't think much of it. But looking back, I was really lucky. But I spent, 6 to 8 weeks in bed. And, when I got out of bed, the doctor said I could ride a road bike. So, and I had no idea about Boulder, Colorado. But even back then, that was in 1992, I think. It was just a huge cycling town. I mean, it's bigger, way bigger today of a cycling town, but back then it was the biggest cycling town, I'd say, in the U.S. And I started riding my bike around Boulder, Colorado, and just was bumping into top amateurs and professionals, and riders like Davis Finney, Ron Kiefel, Andy Hampston. And it was right at my doorstep, and it was the best place to learn how to race your bike. And so I was very, very fortunate there. And so, next thing I joined the CU cycling team, the University of Colorado cycling team. And then I went on a national championship with them, and then did a year as on the U.S. national team, and then was pro the next year, and then 2 years after that on the start line of the tour. So it happened fast, but
that's really fast.
But,
That's gotta be, is it weird? I shouldn't say weird, but was it surprising to you? I mean, you're coming from one sport, you go into the other, and then you have, I'm not going to say instant success, but in some ways it almost is instant success. What was that? Was that shocking to you?
I took it all in stride. I'm a pretty humble guy. I don't know, just one day at a time. And I didn't, whether I had success or I got my butt kicked, it was all, I just knew I was a hard worker. Being a ski racer, you worked hard. It's like during the ski season, you had to have all your ducks in a row. And, your skis always tuned. You had to get plenty of rest. Had to always hit the gym. Be on the hill early and ready to go. And that was kind of year round. You had dry land training in the summer, staying in shape. So I was used to working hard, and I just, I think cycling was maybe more for me than ski racing was, because I like to work hard. And, as I was listening to your interview with Brian Walt, and he said, he was good at suffering. Yeah. I think that was one of my abilities, just, working hard, digging really deep, kind of going cross-eyed, but then recovering quickly and being able to do it again over and over and over again. And not letting the, those thoughts in the back of your head tell you to, to quit or to give up.
Sure.
So, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in New England where hard workers there, and I don't know. I feel like it was that ability to suffer was just kind of part of my kind of upbringing.
Now, so you end up going pro in 95. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
So you go 95, you go pro by 2000. I mean, you've had a lot of success leading up to that. This is where we're going to get into the parts where you're in Postal in 2000, correct?
In the year 2000, I was on Postal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, man, that tour was, God, I was just getting out of the military watching that thing. And it was like, man, I was so.
Which one? The 2000 tour?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm trying to go back. Okay. I mean, I know. Yeah. I was on the Postal team. Yeah. Lance was his second tour.
Maybe I'm thinking 99. I'm thinking 90, 99.
99 was
that was
his first
one,
win. Yeah. But yeah, that was. But yeah, I mean, I was on the Postal team since the original Postal team was in '95. It was under a different title sponsor. The title sponsor then was Montgomery Bell, Montgomery Securities and Bell Helmets. By '96, Postal came in with a sponsorship, a small sponsorship. And then by the end of '96, they're like, we want more, and they upped the budget. And by, then at the end of the '96 season, getting ready for the '97 season, where they were saying we want to, race in the Tour. So we, brought in a team, a Tour de France type staff, Tour de France type riders with experience, And so, yeah, '97, we were in the Tour, we were a wild card selection for the Tour de France. So, yeah.
What's that feel like to be part of something as it's growing? I mean, literally from the start to watch this monstrosity be built and go there and represent.
I mean, it was an amazing experience. I thought it was a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. I was like, when I got, you have to make the Tour de France team. Back then there was 9 riders per team. I think we had 24 riders on the team. So just to make the Tour team was hard. And I remember when I got selected, I told my parents, it's like, you got to come over. This is probably my one and only opportunity to do the Tour, and come early, because I don't know if I'll finish, most likely not, so I was like, come early. And I think I saved every piece of memorabilia from that Tour, because thinking that it was going to be my first and last one.
Little did you know.
Little did I know. Yeah.
It's
but yeah, it was hard. It was a hard Tour.
The circumstances of things are just, I mean, it's so crazy. One, I mean, you think about all the things that have to fall in place. One, you have to crash mountain biking, and you have to break your back.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Two, you have to be in a place where you've already thrown out some names, and if somebody doesn't know cycling, you talk about like Finney or some of the biggest names in cycling happen to be in the city where you were. All of these kind of things is perfect storm with a natural ability, right? Because some people could train, they can do everything just right. It's just not in their genetics to have those abilities. So, there you are, man. You're in the Tour. You're racing. I watched some videos about you and kind of your just testimony about those times and everything that kind of led up. And Brian, and even talking to him, he talks about a pivotal point in his career where I don't know if it was I believe it was a team manager says, Brian, you're doing great. You're an amazing cyclist. Yeah. But you can do more. And Brian's like, what are you talking about, man? I live and I breathe cycling. Everything I do is for the sport of cycling. He says, no, I get that. I understand that. But you can be doing more. And I've heard your testimony on talking about that. That it's kind of like, it's like Robert Bradley or being at the crossroads or no, Johnson at the crossroad, the blues singer, and where you have to pick one way or the other. And explain. We don't have to go into much detail, but just this pivotal point leading up to that, and then your knowledge of what the environment in the world of professional cycling was at the time where that decision was made.
Yeah. So that decision for me, that big pivotal point in my career, was made in the spring of 1997, my third year as a pro cyclist. My first year racing at basically what they call now the World Tour level, the highest level, basically the Tour de France level. And we just finished a really brutal stage race in southern Spain, where I felt like at times I was just hanging on for dear life, but still doing well, hanging on. Plenty of other guys were getting dropped, but I was just hanging on. I finished the race, and I think we had a couple days off before our next race, and I was just lying there in the hotel bed like a starfish, just exhausted. Like I can't believe I just finished that. Well, so hard, and knew it racing at this level. And one of the team doctors came into my room and, told me how proud he was of me for doing so well in the race, completing it, getting through it. And that I had big potential, but, I had to start acting more like professional, he said. And that's when he reached into his he had like a little fly fishing vest on, and he pulled out this little red testosterone pill. And that was kind of when I was introduced to it. And at the time, I mean, now it's easy to say like, oh, I could have sat and really thought about it. And we know what the right answer was. The right answer was to say no. But at the time, this is, the Tour de France was a couple months away. I was on this more or less a newly structured team. Mm-hmm. And, we had, and there was this big pressure to succeed. And, yeah. I didn't want to let anybody down. For me, up to that point, I felt like within the team, I was kind of on the B team within the team. There was an A team and a B team. Right. No one ever told me what team I was on, but I felt like I was on the B team. And I felt like, wow, this well-respected team doctor who would, work with big champions for the last decade, was showing interest in me and thought I had potential. And so, yeah, I honestly didn't think about it too much. I just swallowed it. And I thought about it later, I thought about it, at night.
I want to get into the being up at night thinking about it, but
but yeah, I mean, so I swallowed that little red testosterone pill, and for me, that was the beginning. That was the beginning. It was, in the grand scheme of things, it was a very small thing, and it turned out to be, much greater thing than just a little red testosterone pill.
Sure. So, how old are you at this point?
That was the beginning. I was like 24, 25, maybe. Yeah.
So, it's very easy, I think, and this isn't to give a cop-out because that's not what it is, but it's very easy for somebody outside of not just the sport of cycling, but there's all kinds. It could be any type of environment, right, where you take somebody who's one is young, right? You're 50 now, and 24 seems, when you think back, I'm 45. I think back to 24-year-old me, and I'm a kid, right? I'm in a grown-up body, but I'm a kid.
Yeah.
With ambition, and I'm surrounded by people that want the best out of me, physically. And you don't want to let yourself down. You don't want to let them down. And from the sounds of things, it's almost a form, not almost, it's a form of manipulation at the same time, because you're in this you're in a bubble of high performers that, you look around, you're like, well, I'm on B team. How do I get to A team? Well, what is A team doing? Okay, well, right. This doesn't seem like a very hard decision at this point within this small, bubble of professional cyclists.
Yeah. It was, little did I know then. I mean, I was starting to get some signs that there was stuff going on within the team, after, certain races, certain riders would, maybe half the team get handed a white lunch bag to take home with them after the race. And I was like, what's in this white lunch bag? Right. I wasn't getting one of those. And, and a few different other things. And I don't know, yeah, when that doctor walked into my room, I felt like there was, unless I wanted to pack my bags and head home, which I wasn't ready for that yet, there was one answer. And, it's easy to say now, like, oh, there was more than one answer. And, I didn't seek out doping, doping kind of sought out me, after that, I once I kind of learned the underwritten rules, or the underlying rules, I guess, then it's like, okay, I just kind of accepted it. Eventually, after some years, it was like, all right, this is how it goes. And I just dove into it, or just accepted it. I just kind of dove into it. I just accepted it. And although I knew it was wrong, I did it, and knowing this is what I have to do to compete.
Did you almost feel like, hey man, I've been brought into the club. Like they see the potential for me, that it's almost like, not a rite of passage, but like, that pat on the back. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It was like I was being invited, and it's like they believed in me, and I didn't know up to that point. I didn't know how much they believed in me. I remember the first training camp that, they were so stringent on weight, in the first training camp. I remember going in for that second cookie at dinner, for dessert, and just getting the evil eyeball from the team doctors, and I was really green. I was really green in that, the 97 season. Yeah. But this was, I was being invited kind of into the club, and I didn't know if this was going to last just the one season or, if I could continue on after that. I had no idea. I put college on hold. I'd gone 3.5 years to school and then had about another year left of school. And, I was planning on going back and just it never happened.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So from what happens there has been written and told about a lot of times, right? So the everything around what was going on Postal and Armstrong, and that all starts to fall apart.
Real quick, the red little pill turned into, shots of EPO, which boosts your red blood cell count, which then led to, eventually, transfusions, So it got pretty serious. It got serious pretty quick. Yeah. Not all in the first season, but I'm just saying, like, that's what it turned out to. And then, fast forward, whatever, over a decade, that's when,
you mentioned
things hit the fan.
You mentioned in a video of kind of, I hope I'm paraphrasing this right, but during the off season, kind of these things starting to add up just internally, and it's almost like like a pressure cooker that needs to be released at some point, and it's not being released, and just struggling with that. So if you could talk about that, because one of the things I'm interested in is when we have these habits that add success in one part of our life, but there's other parts that are victim of that, right? Like you're going to struggle with this part. Like maybe my work life is great, but my family life sucks.
Yeah.
What were those kind of telltale signs, and how did you kind of internalize those, and what was that doing to you when nobody else is around and it's just, Tyler laying there?
Yeah. Right. Well, during the season, sometimes in the middle and I had to wake up, and it would be like, here's the truths talking to me in my ear, usually around like 2:30 in the morning. And I'd sit there and look at the ceiling and, think about it and, try to push those feelings in the back, in the back of my head, those thoughts in the back of my head, and get some more rest. But most of the time, like during the season, it was like 110 miles an hour all the time. Like you're going from race to race, you're traveling all the time, you're living in some foreign land, trying to understand foreign languages and cultures and all that. And, so you didn't get a ton of time to like think about it during the season, but I think what you're talking about is, it was after a long and difficult season. I finished the season, and actually it was a really successful season. It was one of the best seasons of my life. And it was like in the off season. And I remember I was trying to train for a few more weeks before I took my little like off season, took my time off the bike. And I remember getting ready and, trying to get out the door, but I was really just pulling myself, those days where you're just like having to pull yourself out the door to do anything, whether it's to go for a walk or a run or a bike ride. And I remember just sitting there and just laying down on this couch and just, and then my wife at the time, Haven, comes downstairs and like, what do you do? You were supposed to leave 2 hours ago. And I was depressed. I was depressed big time. I think, I've suffered, my family has suffered with a little bit of depression, but this, I think it was a lot of like, I think I suffered with a little bit of that, but this was I think a lot of situational depression. It was a massive pressure that was, starting to show cracks in its foundation, I guess. And that's when I first went to see a doctor about it. Like, hey, this is the way, my wife Haven was like, hey, let's go talk to somebody. And, that helped tremendously. I still had to, I couldn't tell the complete truth about what was happening, behind the scenes, but it was nice to have somebody to talk to. And then I started I was on an antidepressant for probably about a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that helped me a lot. That was, I felt very grateful and it was really like it switched like that, the feelings of guilt still were there. I still knew the difference between right and wrong, and still knew I was being pretty deviant, to say the least. But it helped kind of stabilize my mood, stabilize the lows, at least, for sure.
Yeah. This whole consequence of habit thing, and one of the first things in my own journey was, I talk about this ability to package things and to have this thing that everyone else sees. Right. So for me, they see JT, they see they see me professionally. They see me as a family guy, as a dad, as a husband. They go, oh man, this guy's got his shit together. Right. But it's those times that, and we all have them. We all have those two in the mornings when we're kind of laying around and that truth of what's really going on or how you really feel about yourself. That's when those things creep in and you can't package it for yourself. Yourself knows what's going on. So.
Oh yeah. You can't lie to yourself. No way.
No.
Yeah. I call those committee meetings, those middle of the night meetings, just brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what happens from there? Like I said, it's been on the news. It's been all over the place. Floyd's incident happens. He ends up coming forward at one point. You've had your own run-ins, and then there's a pivotal point where, I don't want to mess this timeline up, but do you testify? Is that before 60 Minutes, or how does that timeline work?
I testified in front of a federal grand jury in Los Angeles. I think that was around 2010, maybe 11. That was the first time I told the truth, the whole truth,
Did you walk out feeling 100 pounds lighter?
When I walked out, I felt, like a huge 100-pound backpack, maybe 200-pound backpack gone. And I was just walking around in flip-flops. Yeah. I mean, I still had a lot of challenges ahead of me for sure, but it was like, wow, that feeling. When I left that courtroom in Los Angeles, I think it was 2010. Yeah, it was a life-changing moment for me. I think that was, I would say that was the turning point for me. And I knew going forward, that was all about the truth.
Yeah.
And sometimes just saying something out loud in front of, a bunch of strangers there's number one, it's really cathartic. And then when I really, I talked for about 7 hours and it just, when I said it all out loud from the beginning to the end, I'm like, this is a crazy story. This is, I need to share, this doesn't need to be a secret anymore. And, maybe if I, at the time, everything that I said in front of the federal grand jury was sealed, and locked up. And only if that investigation went forward would my testimony come out. And I knew most likely it was going to go forward. And I just decided to do the 60 Minutes interview. So that was my first time publicly kind of, I guess, telling the truth. And then, but that's only, I think they gave me kind of 2 segments on 60 Minutes. So it was like a little under 40 minutes or something, but there was a lot more truth to be told. So, I decided to write a book about the whole thing. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I had a great co-writer, and that was very helpful. And
the book's called The Secret Race, right? So anyone, please check that out. But leading up to that, knowing that you're about to go, it's not like 60 Minutes is about as big as you're going to get. What was that like? And where are you getting the courage to come out and were there times where like, hey, I got to pull out of this? Was it, what was that like?
It was brutal. I mean, the hardest thing I think was the standing in front of the grand jury. Cause I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to, first they asked me to come in and do it as a proffer, which officially you're volunteering to come in. You can have a lawyer right by your side. And, they can protect you a bit and, you can answer certain questions kind of thing. But I was like, I was still kind of part of the omerta, like the code of silence. I wasn't going to tell the truth, on my old friends and competitors. Like, no way, Jose. I was not into that. And, but eventually so I said no to the proffer, and then I got subpoenaed, which means you come in and tell the truth, or they can send you to jail. So
yeah, I imagine that.
I basically waited the last minute, and was right out to the edge of the cliff, and it was like to either tell the truth or jump. So yeah, that was the biggest thing. And then 60 Minutes, standing, speaking with 60 Minutes was very difficult.
I'm sure.
I was incredibly nervous, and I knew at that point everything I said was, the public was going to hear about it. So
it was interesting watching the interview, because this was still, it's not like it hadn't been out before, but
oh yeah, I mean it was pretty at that time. It was it was pretty heavy, heavy interview, and a lot of people didn't like it.
I'm sure, but
a lot of people knew I was telling the truth, but some people still believed in fairy tales, I guess. And were in denial a little bit. But that was a weird time in my life. But I had a lot of hate mail, and people said a lot of bad things about me, for sure.
Yeah, I think you should. I think it's something you should be really proud of, just because to even watch the interview, right before I watched it earlier today, and it's
no way.
Yeah, and it's this apprehension of. I think Mike Pelly or some, saying,
Scott Pelly.
Scott Pelly. Did you actually see this happen? Right. And there's this apprehension before you say it, and it's like, it didn't want to come out, but it comes out, and that had to take a tremendous amount of courage. Especially at a time where that the truth, even though it sets you free at this point, does not fit the narrative that a lot of people wanted to believe. So you're like you said, not public enemy number one, but you are. There's a lot of people that are going to turn their back on you at some point. If they see a face
massively, yeah. But the truth will set you free. And I knew, I just knew, I'd been lying about it for such a long time, and really been suffering. Severely depressed, and there were times I didn't want to live, I really didn't, but I knew that what I had to do, and if it meant, I was going to be hated by millions of people, so be it, but I knew it was the truth, and they knew it was,
right.
A lot of people knew it was the truth. So
sure.
But yeah, that was, once the interview, there was, I think, a couple of months maybe before the interview aired. So there was a little bit of calm before the storm.
Right.
And that's when I told my parents for the first time, and my brother and sister.
Really?
So there was some work to do there. And that was brutal. But then, and then the interview was came out on TV, and it was a circus for a while, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Okay. Tyler, now I really want to get into it, and I feel like just telling that stuff, like you said, is part of your story, and it's the groundwork for the pivot that ends up happening. You've got this, not a high, but you have this relief of kind of getting this stuff off your chest. You laid it out on the table, and like you said, it as it's coming out of my mouth, I realize how crazy it is. But now it's out. My days in cycling at this point are, at least professionally, done.
Done.
This thing that I've thought about of myself. I'm a professional. I'm telling you, I'm a professional cyclist. I ride at the highest level. This is my identity. I do it all the time. Well, that's gone. Now what? I mean, what are those conversations like at 2 a.m? Like, where am I going to go from here?
Yeah, I don't know. I was confused for a while. I kind of bounced around for a while, just doing different things. And, the book, at least after 60 Minutes, I was like, that wasn't enough. Like, there's still so much more of the truth that I need to tell. And luckily I found Dan Coyle, who's, just a great writer and understood the sport and knew me a bit. And we spent almost 2.5 years, writing this book. So that gave me kind of focus. I also had a coaching business.
Yeah.
So I did coach some cyclists, mostly kind of weekend warrior types.
Yeah.
Type of riders, not really pros, but I was, definitely, way far away from pro cycling, and I always thought during my career, like, oh, I'll have so many options in cycling, after I'm done, this is when things were going really good.
Sure.
And most likely had things ended well and, none of this ever happened, maybe I think I would have had plenty of opportunities, but no, I was scrapping, just trying to figure it out. The book took some time to write, and that gave me focus. And then after the book came out, I got asked to do a lot of come and speak in front of a company or at an event
right.
So I did that for a while, and it was just like, it was brutal just having to keep repeating these awful stories that I wasn't very proud of,
Yeah.
But I think it was good for me. I had to eat a lot of humble pie for sure. At some point there, I think 2012, I moved away from Boulder, Colorado. That was right during the, there was a lot of stuff going on at that time. A lot of stuff behind the scenes that I didn't like. Felt like I was in a weird movie a little bit. So I moved out of Boulder, moved here to Missoula, Montana, and kind of started a new life here. Yeah. But during the initial years, I finished the book when I was up here in Missoula. Did some public speaking for a few years there. Tried my hand in real estate, got my real estate license.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But, did that for about a year. And, that was my thing. And then I took just a little time, just took a few steps back and took some deep breaths, did a lot of yoga and walking my dog or, paddleboarding in some rivers here in Montana. And a couple of years ago, started working for a money manager in Denver.
Yeah.
And I studied economics back in college a long, long time ago. And so I started out fully green. I had to get past my Series 65 exam. And that was hard. But I'm kind of on the business development side, working for a money manager in Denver, which has been great. It's been great. Yeah. And we help. It's fun. What I do love to do is help people, whether it's, coaching people or, I do a lot of work for the fight against multiple sclerosis. I'm on a board of directors, and I know a lot of people who suffer with the disease.
Mm-hmm.
And, I like to help as many people as I can, as much as I can. So helping people, manage their money better than they did before, that's, it can help a lot of people and can make people's lives a lot less stressful. That's for sure. So,
but that's huge though. It's not like you're expected to where this thing that you've been doing all of a sudden, is kind of pulled out from under you, whether that's part you're doing or not is almost irrelevant at that point. But life goes on, and it's not like the next day you're going to find the thing that you're great at and you're going to go and have tons of success. So I'm sure there's going to be that kind of figuring things out for a couple of years and on where you're going to go from there. But
there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that for sure. Yeah. Yeah. But I think change, making a change is so important. Just moving out of Boulder, Colorado. I love Boulder, great town, but that was my cycling town. That was, I was a cyclist there, and I moved to a town that I didn't know anybody. It seemed like a really cool town. It's, remember that movie, A River Runs Through It?
Yeah. I love that movie.
Yeah. It's based here in Missoula. And, it was just and I starting fresh and no one knew what a professional cyclist was here when I moved here. And it's been nice. I'm just a normal guy here. Yeah. I like that. And then, and kind of found myself again. For the first few years here, I felt like I was kind of on a little bit of a retreat almost. It was, just the beautiful nature. I love animals. So there's a lot of wild animals out there.
Yeah.
And it was just took a few steps, probably 3 or 4 steps back, and kind of started over, and it's never too late to start over for sure.
Yeah. That's for sure. Hey, what habits would you say, what habits did you do you practice now that you practice during cycling? Because to get to where you were, you know, doping stuff aside, you don't get to where you were without really being able to suffer, having these habits in your everyday that allow this success or help this success along the way. What stuff do you pull from your days as a professional athlete that are kind of helping you in with Blacksmith?
Yeah. I mean, just number one, like it all starts with like getting enough rest, right? If you don't get enough rest, or it's certainly I can only speak for my experiences. If you don't get enough rest, you're working on a half tank of gasoline basically. So, getting a good night's sleep, eating well, drinking a lot of water, and like exercising. Exercise is super important, whether it's out on a bike ride, out on a run, or just walking your dog. Even if you only have 10 minutes, just a 10-minute walk outside, will do you wonders. Those are critical. So getting outside, moving every day, that's important for me. And for a while, I didn't do any of that. Like even when I first moved here to Missoula, because I think my head was spinning. There was just so much going on.
Sure.
But, once I started moving again, I was like, oh man, I feel a lot better,
Yeah.
And the thing that got me moving again was yoga.
Really?
Yoga. Yeah. And man, I loved it. COVID kind of threw a wrench in that a little bit. I used to, just go to class. I still do a bit at home, but yeah, it was great. It's, yoga's great for the mind, body, and soul. And it helped me kind of come out of a bit of a funk for sure.
Yeah.
And then come back kind of led me into, do a little bit of meditating and just starting your day with a good, clear head, with a solid foundation. And, your chances of having a okay day or a successful day are a lot better when, you have a clear head, you had a good night's rest, you're well hydrated, you're kind of ready to go. And then whatever, you work hard, and then you do every day, you do the best you can. And guess what? You get to do it over the next day.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And like some days are good, some days are bad. Sometimes you have bad days or, difficult days with work or whatever. But, you keep, and my parents always told me, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and like, you'll get there. Keep your eyes kind of, on the task at hand, on that prize, and like, you'll get there,
Did you have a core set of people that, I mean, obviously your family, but this is just had to be just such a crazy time. Like you said, when cycling's done and you've moved off to where people really don't know you all that well.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have other people that recognized how hard that must have been, that are reaching out to you on a regular basis to provide some type of support? Or did you really kind of feel like you're out on an island?
There were a few that kind of had an idea, but I felt like I was on an island. Man, for sure.
That'd be so hard.
Yeah. Which made it probably worse. And I probably could have leaned a little harder on some individuals or been a little bit more open and honest, but I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know if it's a guy thing, but sometimes we hold in.
Sure.
Even though things were certainly getting better, and like, maybe they weren't going like straight up like that, but they were, I could have probably reached out a little bit more, but yeah, I figured a lot of stuff out on my own. Yeah. Just sitting there, getting through it, whatever.
Oh man. Man.
Yeah. They say every cell in your body changes every 7 years. So you're,
I've heard that. Yeah.
So you're completely new every 7 years. So
it's a long wait though. 7 years.
It's a long wait. Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. I bounced around for a while, or I struck, I just, not to say I've figured it all out, certainly I got lots to learn for sure, but things have gotten a lot better. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel very lucky, and I feel lucky just to have had, although I said I was on a little bit of an island, I did have a lot of support, a strong family behind me. But, I know they loved me, and they forgave me, and they obviously were disappointed what happened, sure, but they understood it, and they, still love me. That's for sure. And I had a lot of friends that, were the same way, and I knew they were always right there. If I asked, they'd be there for me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I figured out a bunch of stuff on my own, just kind of, whatever, taking 4 steps back. And,
yeah. So you're still involved in cycling in some ways, and it sounds like with Black Swift, you guys are certainly supporting the sport and the cyclists, especially cycling being a sport where, monetarily there's a lot of people that aren't on the same level as like professional athletes in other sports. So explain a little bit what you guys at Black Swift are doing to help cyclists out.
Yeah, well, our chief investment officer, or Greg Casals, he's a big fan of the sport of cycling. He was a runner in college, and then moved his firm to Denver and lives in Boulder. And over the years, would run into a lot of pro cyclists, and he had no idea really. It's just the lack of resources in the sport. As I was saying to you before we started the podcast, like, maybe the upper 1%, maybe 0.5%, they're a pro cyclists. Maybe they're kind of set. But there are a lot of cyclists that are really, suffering, that are in need. Plenty of like sort of continental pros here in North America are either racing without health insurance or limited health insurance, or
it's crazy.
Or they get a contract and with all these stipulations in it, and they just sign it because they can't afford a lawyer, and their director saying, or the general manager saying, you have 2 days to sign this thing. Also, so the focus, we started a fund called the Pro Cyclist Fund. Majority of the management fees go to the Pro Cyclist Foundation, and this foundation supports, pro cyclists in need. The focus has been kind of on the legal side, on the wellness side, and then the career development side. A lot of cyclists during their careers aren't thinking about life after cycling, but guess what? There's a lot of life to live after cycling, a lot. And most likely your career is not going to end exactly the way you want it to end,
Yeah.
So start, thinking, it doesn't mean you have to like go to college full time as a pro cyclist, but maybe you take a class or two, in the off season, or maybe, you work on a skill set that you already have, or a skill set that you're interested in during your career. And also like during, and also for career guidance, we're going to have a lot of, veteran cyclists working with the neo pros or the young cyclists, so they don't make as many, faults as some of us did back in the day.
Yeah. Do you talk to some of the older cyclists that maybe even ones that weren't happy with the way things went down, but have come around and maybe thought you were more of a pioneer to be able to come out and talk about it? Do any of those people reach out to you, and do you have conversations with them these days?
Yeah, sometimes they reach out to me, or sometimes I just bump into them. I was just at the U.S. Pro National Championships in Knoxville, and
right.
you bump into some people. Some people are more happy to see you than others. Let's just put it that way. And I completely get it. But I think they're a lot seem happy that we're working on this, with this fund and the possibilities of this foundation. We've already given away over $100,000 just this year, and we're going to give away a lot more. So, and that can make a big difference to, especially a cyclist teeter-tottering whether they can even afford to do this sport anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
We've also supported like 4 different development teams that are kind of right there, like a young pro team, and the junior and under 23 type teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love the sport of cycling. It gave me a lot for sure. I want to get back, and I saw the good, the bad, the ugly, and there's a lot of other uglies out there that, we haven't talked about that, that with some more resources that we can help, alleviate some of that ugliness.
We've talked a little bit about it. Again, I don't have all the inside knowledge, or actually when I say any or all, I mean very little, but I've had discussions about just even the mental side of that sport and how hard people are driven. And, like a guy like Tom Dumoulin has to step away, right? He has to step away from the sport because at least he has the emotional awareness to go, hey, this is not healthy. Something's not right. It's too much. Because when you're wrapped up in something, whether it's bike racing or whatever it is, sometimes you need, it's almost like you telling the story and going, this story is crazy that we're doing this to race our bikes, to race our bikes. Right.
Yeah.
Like, is the juice worth the squeeze? I mean, you know, I'm driving myself into depression. I'm doing all of these things for, well, you know, for a bike race, which it's like
for a bike. Yeah. Massive amount of pressure, and, you know, hats off to Tom Dumoulin for taking that break. You know, I don't know if you know, but he's making a comeback now, but he took, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 months, and just, you know, took some time away and didn't even know if he was going to come back. And it was kind of interesting. I remember watching an interview. He was at a training camp, and I saw him doing an interview talking about the season ahead. This is the day before he announced that he's going to take some time off. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, something doesn't look right. Like, it looked like he was just faking the answers, basically, which I've done plenty, you know?
Yeah.
And I know what that looks like and feels like. And I thought to myself, you know, he doesn't seem right. And sure enough, the next day he, you know, announces that he's going to take some time away from the sport, you know, maybe be done forever. And, you know, hats off to him. But yeah, it's a massive amount of pressure, the sport. And, you know, you're only as good as your last result, basically. You know, just because you won the Tour last year doesn't mean anything for this year, right? It's really cutthroat. It's, you know, you have tons of young riders, up and coming riders are trying to take your spot. And, you know, now I feel like the sport's even harder today. I mean, now you have to deal with social media. You have to have some sort of presence on social media, and, you know, obviously make sure you're saying all the right things. And there's just a lot going on. And the level seems like it's even higher. Like, everyone now is training harder than ever. Like, you know, not everyone back at, let's call it in the year 2000. It didn't seem like everyone was training to the best of their abilities back then, because they didn't know. Mm-hmm. But now everybody knows. Everybody knows you got to do these kind of intervals. You know, you got to train, you know, this many hours. You got to go to altitude. You got to do this, that, and the other thing. So,
yeah, these are all,
you know, and, you know, being in Knoxville over the weekend, looking at all these athletes, the men and women, they're all so fit.
Yeah.
So fit. And they're racing in, you know, 90-degree temperatures, you know, 100% humidity, it felt like, and brutal. It was just hard standing there.
Yeah.
So, you know, hats off to them. But the sport's brutal. It's hard sport, really hard sport. In my opinion, it's the hardest sport in the world. And, you know, all these riders, the men and women, need more support.
Sure. Yeah. You know, I've talked to other people and they've said the same thing about just the mental aspect of it. And then you add in the social media where, you know, you've had a hard day racing, and then you're either expected to be on social media, or, you know, those engineers are real good at getting us hooked on those phones. So then now they're just up on it because you're getting those little dopamine hits, and it's an escape from, you know, the day of suffering that they just had. So, people are brutal.
And you have all this stuff. And then, by the way, you might have a life outside of cycling that we haven't even talked about, right? And you have family, and you have a relationship, and you have friends, and you're just getting squeezed, and there's only so much time, right? And maybe you're, you know, at the highest level, you're over in Europe, and then but you know, you live back here, at least for the North American riders, but you have some sort of home base back here. It's just, you're really stretched thin.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, you're always tired because you're training your tail off.
I'm sure.
And, you know, and you're also, like, you know, unfortunately, weight's a big issue in cycling, because it's, you know, it's a lot of your strength to weight ratio. So, like, you're hungry a lot too. So you're trying to stay at race weight or close to race weight. So that, you know, that a lot of people don't talk about, but there's you know, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. You know, when you're hangry.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. I remember being hangry a lot, and it's just, but you had to make, you know, race weight, because, you know, you had to perform in the Tour. So
if you could tell yourself, and I apologize if this is like a cliche question. I actually, I presented this on my LinkedIn profile, and I'd given options of things you could do. If you could talk to the 24-year-old Tyler Hamilton. And this isn't as easy as like, hey, don't take the red pill. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you could have some sound advice to that younger version of yourself that's kind of so wrapped up in this thing going around you. Does anything just kind of come to mind? Is there anything you've learned from that process that you would like, man, if I could give you some wisdom, this would be it?
Yeah. Listen to your gut.
Yeah.
And I know what my gut was telling me. So, yeah.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And that would have meant, not doping. Sure. I wouldn't have quit though. I would have given it my all to do a clean. Maybe at some point I would have been pushed out. I don't know. But
once you start that, is it very hard then to even go back clean because you feel like you're always missing that thing?
It was hard to go back. Yeah. It was hard to go back.
I imagine it would be.
Because you knew nobody else was going back.
Right.
My first tour was 97. I think there was around 210 starters. I'd be surprised if 5 were clean.
Golly.
So, 5. But it was just part of the sport.
Yeah.
Lance didn't start doping. He didn't start doping. I didn't start doping. It existed for a long time. Let's be honest. Like most of the truth has not come out. You know what I mean? And not to say we need it to come out. Maybe it's best we don't know the truth. I don't know. But let's be honest. It had been going on in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s,
sure,
90s, sure. And it wasn't just me and Lance and a couple other guys cheating. But it was part of the system, whose fault is it? Who knows? I mean, some people point the finger at the governing body, but some people point the finger at the teams or the sponsors or the riders, but I don't know, or you JT could point the finger at that team doctor that walked into my room with the fly fishing vest, but he was just doing his job too.
Sure.
And he had been probably doing that job for 10 years, having those kind of conversations with riders, I assume, it was part of the deal.
I mean, I've often wondered what it is about the sport that
it's so hard.
That's what it's the
problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was really disappointed maybe 10 years, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago. They said they were trying to clean up the sport. And I think it's gotten a lot cleaner, but it was the last day of the Tour de France, the second to last day that, the last day goes into Paris, but it was the second last day. And they add the Alpe d'Huez stage and they don't go up at once, but they go up at twice. And they're, come on.
Yeah, but do it clean.
Like this is, but do it clean. It's like, this isn't you want to do Alpe d'Huez twice, have it in the first week then when everybody's fresh, if everyone's doing this clean. So it's right. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a balance. It's a balance. They want to make the race hard and brutal. It's, it's the toughest race on the planet. Right. But yeah.
Are there relationships that you think will ever change? And again, I don't want this to be a cliche, because some of some of the infighting, the consequences of coming clean they've had some huge. The consequences have been relationships you had with some of your closest riders, teammates. Do you think there's a point where that is rectified, or do you think, or do you even have any desires? There's just been too much damage. I mean, clearly there's been some ugly parts of it.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm open. I don't hate anybody anymore. There's a time where I hated some people, really.
Yeah.
Which I consider that word. I take that word pretty seriously.
Right.
But I don't hate anybody anymore. And I am rooting for everybody. Even maybe some of my most challenging relationships. And never say never. Like, I don't know, like I'm open to anything. Yeah. I'm open to being open and honest and whatever. If my path crosses again with,
sure,
some of the individuals that I haven't really seen in a decade and a half almost. Yeah. Like, why not?
Yeah. Life's too short.
Especially if we can, maybe combine forces and help the sport of cycling, in some way, like, to give back,
I think that's happening where you're seeing I mean, obviously you've got the Move podcast, which is done.
It's awesome.
It's been great, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's an audience there waiting for riders from those times to step in and say, hey, this is what it was. I'm not proud of it, but I am proud of some of the achievements that I mean, we did some amazing things.
Yeah.
I love the sport and let's talk about like this tour. Let's talk about the riders. One of the best things is hearing those experiences from the hotel of what's like the inside of cycling, because that's somewhat lost. You just don't hear much about it.
It kind of got lost because of the dope.
Sure.
The doping came out, and then it's all been focused on the doping.
Yeah.
Anything we ever did is due to the doping.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just the way it goes, I guess. And I gotta, just take responsibility for it. If people want to hear about it, I'll talk about it. If they want to.
But there has to be term limits.
Yeah.
There has to be term limits. I mean, we talked about it here, and really my main reasoning is one, I mean, the podcast is called Consequence of Habits, but you've had your consequences and now you're moving on in your life. And I think that shit's hard, man. That shit's got to be hard. That process isn't always, it's not pretty. It's not fast, but you still got some fans. And matter of fact, Steve was said, make sure I tell you that he's still your biggest fan. He wanted it on the air. Yeah. He wanted it on the air. So yeah, it's very nice.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, he's great. What a wonderful human being. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
thank you.
Where
whatever. Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of great times, and a lot's kind of been lost, due to the doping scandal. But yeah, we had some great times, and it was an amazing experience to be on an American team, winning the Tour de France, and against all odds kind of thing. And also just an amazing experience to go over and live in Europe and to travel to all these great countries, experience all these amazing cultures. And I mean, it was definitely a whirlwind. And as I was saying before, it was at 110 miles an hour, but still, I mean, I feel, looking back, I still feel very lucky about all that. I've traveled around the whole world.
It's great.
Many times.
That's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy kind of having a slower lifestyle now for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of keeping it simple, but it's, lots of good memories for sure.
Hey, so you're doing a podcast also, right?
Yeah, I do a podcast with my buddy Pete. Yeah, he lives in Calgary, Canada.
All right, well, let's plug that, man. Let's get that out there.
Oh yeah, it's called Adventure Audio. Yeah, it's a passion project. It's just usually once every week or two we'll put a podcast out. And yeah, we just get people on that like to get out and get after it. Cyclists, rock climbers, runners. You name it. If you get out there and like to adventure, we'd like to talk to you, basically.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's fun kind of being on the other side of, kind of being the interviewer instead of the interviewee. And I like seeing what makes people tick and, what gets them out of bed in the morning, what motivates them, and I've taken a lot from it,
Yeah.
We interviewed a runner early on. It was one of our first podcasts, and I was like, I'm going to start running. And I'm still running today, or jog. I call it jog, slow. Yeah.
Yeah. You build relationships with people you have on. I mean, to this day, I on a very regular basis. I mean, I'm only 50 episodes in.
Great.
But I have, every week I'm talking to, and people that are doing amazing things like, 2-star generals from the Army, or just, endurance athletes doing unbelievable things, or people have come down from rock bottom and then are going on to just live these, not just amazing lives, but the service work of helping other people to kind of rebuild their life. And that's powerful stuff.
Yeah. It's really inspiring. I mean, I look forward to doing the interviews, and but yeah, you're right. You have a relationship with these people, and, although it's you just listen to the audio, we do it so you can this, so we can see each other, so you can look in their eyes, and JT, we know each other now better than we did like an hour ago, right?
Yeah. Hey, and that's
better,
yeah. And then you end up talking about like intimate things that you wouldn't normally talk to a stranger about, right? So,
yeah.
But Tyler, I don't want to keep you, man. I know I'm sure you've got a busy day here, but you're up on social also? So where else can people find you?
I do a little bit of that, not much, but a little bit. Yeah, somewhere on Instagram, and I think I have a Twitter account. Yeah, I'm mostly now it's business with LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn probably is my biggest one.
Okay,
yeah.
Well,
but I don't know. At the beginning of COVID, I'm like, this social media stuff. It's leading to a lot of depression in young kids. I'm like,
it's toxic.
I don't know. I do a teeny bit of it, but not much. I mean, if you're looking for daily updates, don't look for me.
Wrong place. I keep blaming it on.
Go ahead.
I blame it on the reason my podcast doesn't completely blow up is because I recognize the fact that I am low-lying fruit for like social media. Like those engineers, it's like they took my brain and then they built everything around it to know the dopamine hits. So I recognize it and I try and stay away from it. I think it's, I'm not Rogan because of it. that's what I'm going to put the reason behind. It's got nothing to do with the quality of the podcast. It's only because I'm not on social media. But Tyler, man, thanks so much for coming on. Like I said, not grown up, we're almost the same age, but I've watched you racing for a long time. There's pivotal things I remember about your races. I mean, even slowing everybody down when Lance got his feedback stuck on the thing and fell, and some of your stage wins, and always been a fan, man. So to sit here and have this conversation with you, it means a lot to me, and I commend you. You were just to even go through that stuff takes some intestinal fortitude that few had, and so. I don't know your thoughts on it, but from the outside looking in, I say bravo to you and all the luck in the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, JT. It was, really great to meet you, and, keep up the good work with your podcast. And maybe hopefully we'll have a conversation again sometime soon.
Yeah, I hope so.
Or sometime if I'm on the East Coast, we'll get out for a bike ride.
Yeah, dude, I love it. And I'm out your way. I mean, not a lot, but I definitely make my way out there. So we'll have to set something.
Yeah, let me know. Cool. Bring your mountain bike.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, that's it for me. Thanks to Tyler Hamilton for coming on the podcast. And man, what an open book. Be sure to check out his social media. Check out his book, The Secret Race. That's it, man. I hope you guys all have a great week, and I will catch you later.